Ladies and gentlemen, Binnall of America!
And now, ladies and gentlemen, your host, Tim Binnall.
No commercials, no subscriptions, no network, no rules, and at the end of the day, my friends, no comparison. Welcome to another edition of BOA The Revival. Really looking forward to this week's show. We've got a very interesting guest lined up for you tonight on the program. Barnaby Jones. He's the founder and lead investigator for CAPS, Cryptids, Anomalies, and the Paranormal Society, researching and investigating the possible connections between different phenomena from Bigfoot to aliens, ghosts and shadow people, fairies and portals, and Dogman. He's based out of Wisconsin. He hosts a couple of shows, Monsters on the Edge and the Paranormal Spectrum, and he's got a whole sort of podcast network going on over there in the Barnaby Jones empire. It's quite something. I was just saying to him, I don't know how he keeps up with all this stuff. I'm like, holy shit, dude, this guy's he's doing a lot, man. He's doing a lot. He's got a lot going on. And I've seen his name pop up in my travels over the last few months, especially with Coast to Coast, watching the news. Barnaby, he'll be making appearances and stuff. And the name just kind of stood out to me. I'm like, this is Barnaby Jones guy. This name, this is catchy. I want to talk to this guy. So here he is on tonight's program, the one and only Barnaby Jones. Welcome to BOA, my friend.
Hey, good to be here, man. Thanks for having me.
Now, we generally start out with the bio, the background. Who is Barnaby Jones and how did you get mixed up in all this? And I'm going to add a caveat as we start because already I mentioned you were going to be on the show, and you probably get this question a lot. Is Barnaby Jones, is this like a stage name? Or because like I'm Googling you to find out, I'm trying to like just get as much information on you as I can. Like put in Barnaby Jones and it's like, Barnaby Jones is a 1970s detective show. I'm like, what the fuck is going on here? But, I had a guy on earlier in the year named Tanner Boyle, and I'm like, is this like a stage name for like Bad News Bears? He's like, no, my parents just named me Tanner Boyle. So I'm like, oh shit, that's wild. So maybe your real name really is Barnaby Jones, and it's just like, oh, holy shit. So what's the deal with the name, and what's the bio and background?
Yeah, I got my name for my birthday. It is my real name. My mom named me this, so that is my real legal name, Barnaby Jones. It is a TV show, and at this point, I could probably win any Buddy Ebsen trivia contest because every time I meet people over a certain age, they feel it necessary to tell me everything that they know about Buddy Ebsen and Barnaby Jones and the Tin Man from Wizard of Oz, Babes in Toyland, Barnabas Collins, the Dark Shadows series. It's also a character on Rugrats, and the list goes on and on. Wow. I've heard it all. So yeah, it's a pretty, unfortunately for being as unique as it is, it's a pretty popular name.
That's wild. That's crazy. All right. Yeah. I was sure it was a stage thing. I was like, oh, okay. So you must be going by this name because it's cool. And so, wow, that's really awesome. All right. So, well, we've established that this is a real name. So who is Barnaby Jones? How'd you get involved in all this stuff?
Oh man, so I've been interested in the paranormal, cryptids, ghosts, you name it, since I was very young. I think it actually goes back to the first time I saw Ghostbusters, and I got kind of obsessed with just the paranormal and stuff like that. And back in elementary school, we had to do a research paper, and that was right at the height of when El Chupacabra was big in Puerto Rico. And that was my choice for my research paper. So ever since then, I've been obsessed with El Chupacabra and everything that goes on with that creature and stuff. So that kind of launched that. And I did some ghost hunting, some paranormal stuff through, middle school, high school and that. But I ended up owning a haunted house attraction in a haunted building for a few years. Yeah. And I had the most intense paranormal experience that I, to this day, still had at that location. And I have no way to explain that. I went on after that to meet Craig and Barb Salk, who ran the Hidden Adventure in Upper Michigan, Bigfoot in the UP. And I realized that these creatures, Bigfoot, was, right here in my own neck of the woods in Wisconsin, Upper Michigan, and worldwide pretty much. And I never really realized that growing up. I always thought, like most people, Bigfoot was out in the Pacific Northwest or, the Yeti and stuff like that. And once I realized that, then I started doing more research on these creatures right here in Wisconsin in the Midwest. And that led me down to Burlington, Wisconsin, where I had my first actual Bigfoot experience. 2 weeks later, I got a group of people together again to go back to that same location, and that's how we founded Cryptids, Anomalies, and the Paranormal Society. So we can get into more details on all that as much as you want and everything that's happened since then, but that's the, in a nutshell, background of where I came from and how CAPS and, all this whole ball of wax started.
Interesting. All right. Yeah. There's a lot there to dig into. Well, let's start with the profound paranormal experience that you had at the haunted house. I'm sure you've told this story a million times, but,
Yep.
I haven't heard it. So, I'm the most, it's an audience of one, let's be honest. So my listeners will be happy to hear the story too, but if I want to hear it, then we're going to hear it. So tell me this story here about the profound paranormal experience.
Yeah. So, I wanted to do a haunted house. I was doing it, decorated my yard and stuff for years. And I started working and helping out this charity haunted house in a different location. And the charity closed down. So we packed up on the haunt, and it became basically my haunt then. And I moved it to this building where there was another haunted house and a laser tag arena, and they were already doing some ghost hunts out of there.
Yeah.
Well, we moved into this hangar section of this building. It's an old tannery building, like leather tannery.
Okay.
And in this area, there's 3 skylights in the roof. So the building all summer and, while we're in there building this before we open is bright, up till 9:00 at night. Well, we're getting late into the year and getting into September time, August, September, and it's time that we start doing the lighting for the attraction and getting that all set up. But we can't do that during the day because it's too bright in there. Even if you turn off the lights, you're still getting light from the skylights.
Yeah.
So one night I decided that I was going to go out there and start working on this by myself. So I went out there. I walked in the front door, turned on the laptop that ran the lighting system and everything. And I had a baseball cap with a headlamp on the front of it. So that was my only light at the time. And I walked through my haunt back to the one room that I had already started doing some lighting just to kind of see how it looked and, a place to start from. And this room was a swamp scene. So on the sides of the room, there was big styrofoam blocks. They're about 1.5 by 1.5 square, and then about 8 to 10 feet long. And on the tops of it, we had ferns and other fake stuff stabbed into it. And the one side of it, we had this large outdoor pond and a waterfall. So we had big pallets set up in kind of a semicircle around it, around this pond and this dock floats and stuff. And at the far end of this is a solid wall. It led into a black room with a revolving photography door.
Okay.
So I came in from the far end of the room, and this was a huge archway, styrofoam archway that led into a castle scene. So I came in from the castle and I walked in towards the dark room door, the photo room door, and I'm looking back across the pond, and there's a 6-foot tall fake tree there. And the tree has one branch on it that's just lightly bobbing up and down, like it's being blown in the wind.
Yeah.
Well, the entire attraction has 8-foot tall walls. And it's pretty blocked in. In the summer, it was over 100 degrees in there because there's no airflow. It's a very stagnant building. Mm-hmm. So where the heck is there wind blowing coming from in this room? I don't know. And all the lights are off except for a couple little scenic lights that I had in there, like I said, that are very small. They're little spotlights, and then my headlamp. So I see this tree bobbing, and I'm like, what the heck is that? So I started walking over closer to it because I'm thinking, is there an animal in here, or what's making this move?
Yeah, that makes sense.
And I walked over, so I'm parallel to it, just on the other side of this big styrofoam float block thing. And the entire tree starts to violently shake.
Oh, boy.
And I'm looking at it with my headlamp like, what is doing this? And I took one step backwards, and the entire tree lifted up and fell across right where I had been standing.
Oh, wow. Yikes.
So this tree has I ended up leaving.
Yeah,
I looked around, and I'm like, there's nobody there. Like I said, it was right at the edge of the pond, so it was inside this semicircle of pallets, vertical, standing on edge pallets. So there's no room for someone to be behind that. You'd see it. I don't see any animal run around or anything, or nothing to indicate what happened here. So I left. I came back the next day with my mom and one of the other workers and stuff that we were doing, and we have security cameras in this place. But they're set up to monitor like the customers coming through, in case somebody hits an actor or something like that.
Right, yeah.
They didn't really capture where I was looking, but you could see my headlamp looking around and stuff. You could see that in the dark, but that's about it. But you could definitely see if anything came or left that area, any animal, anything that came into that room, because there's 8-foot walls. There's no way to get through this thing unless somebody moves that you can see it. There's nothing. There's nobody there. So this tree has a kind of a cement base to it. And if you remember the old like Weeble Wobble toys.
Oh, yeah.
So you kind of pull it over, it wiggles back to standing in that. And that's what this tree would do. If you grab it and you pull it over, you can get it to almost a like 45-degree angle, and it'll still snap back to standing up.
Gotcha.
So not only did whatever this was have enough energy to knock it over all the way, but also get it up over about 1.5 foot styrofoam block to get it to fly at me. So that was my most intense paranormal experience so far. I've never experienced anything like that since. But there we had everything from disembodied voices. We've gotten EVPs at that location. We've seen like little shadow people peeking out from behind walls of like children and adults. You name it. We had experiences in that place, and all of my actors and stuff as well. And this was before we even started CAPS, but we were interested in the paranormal and stuff. So we were out there. One of my investigators had an EMF meter. He was into the paranormal at that time. So we would do investigations after the haunt closed or after we'd be done building for the night and working out there. So we had all this like footage from back in the day. So when we started CAPS, we released our first episode was the Burlington Woods, because that was, where we had the first Bigfoot experience and all that stuff. That's a totally different story. But then the second episode that we released on the YouTube channel was all these stories and videos and stuff that we had from this location. So it's a really cool thing.
Yeah, that's wild. Yeah, that would freak me out. I'd be like, all right, I'm getting the fuck out of here, because that's kind of a message to like get out. I think I don't know what would happen if you stuck around. So it's really interesting to me is that until I started digging more into your background, I had primarily kind of thought of you as a cryptid researcher, but you kind of look at all the different stuff.
Yeah. We determined early on that you have to, like, if you focus for Bigfoot, just as an example here, if you focus on Bigfoot and you say this is a large hominin creature walking around the United States, you're missing out on so much stuff. And I'm not here to say that Bigfoot is a paranormal, interdimensional, extraterrestrial being, but it might be. And when you think about that, and if you put it into this block of it's just a large ape out in the woods, you're missing out on so much other things.
Yeah.
And when you go out into the woods and you have these other experiences, we've been out Bigfooting and seen a basketball sized blue orb in the woods.
Oh, wow.
While Bigfooting. So does that mean that this orb is Bigfoot? No, it 100% doesn't. It means that when I was out in the woods, I saw a basketball-sized blue orb. So What is that? Well, I don't know. But it happened while I was Bigfooting. So now you have all these different experiences, and you have to figure out how to put that together. So you look at different phenomenon from the Fey realm to the extraterrestrial realm to the Bigfoot realm, and you start seeing all these similarities of people's experiences, being abducted, hearing a woman's voice or a voice calling you into the woods is heard in Fey culture, the fairy people, the extraterrestrials, and in Bigfooting. And you have these similarities of stories and folklore and tales throughout history. If you only focus on one aspect of that, you miss out on all these connections, and you're missing that whole other side of the story. So we don't just focus on each aspect. Each one of our team has a specialty. And when we go out on different cases, we all bring that specialty to those cases, and we're able to look at it from a extraterrestrial, from an interdimensional, from a paranormal, from a cryptid standpoint, so that not all of us have to know everything about a subject, but when we come together as a team, we all know all aspects of this topic, or are familiar with it at least, so we can say, hey, what about this? And what about, have you thought about that? And look at this, so.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Because there definitely seems to be an interconnectedness to this, whatever, all these different phenomena. It's, it really is kind of like, I'm always surprised that some people cross over, but a lot of folks don't. A lot of folks are like specialists, and it's like you're missing out on, like you're saying, it's like, well, you'd be very surprised if you looked into this, Bigfoot, or if you're a Bigfoot person, if you looked into the ghosts or whatever, it's like you'd be surprised. There's a lot of overlap here between this stuff. It doesn't necessarily help us get any closer to figuring out what it is, but it certainly add some new perspective to it, where it's like, okay, this is much bigger, I think, than what just an ape in the woods or something. Not that couldn't be the case, but it seems a lot more complicated than that.
And it's not to say that they are connected or have anything to do with each other, but what happens when you go out there to look for Bigfoot and this, paranormal or extraterrestrial entity shows up instead? Aren't you glad that you know what that is, instead of, just saying, oh, I'm just out here Bigfooting? It's like, how many stories have we heard of deer hunters out in the woods that run into Bigfoot? Well, if all they only know deer hunting, and now all of a sudden they're faced with this other creature and they have this whole paradigm shift. Well, that's the same way that you're looking at this if you're out there looking for Bigfoot and all of a sudden a dog man shows up. What are you going to do? If you don't understand everything that's going on with dog man, just because you're in the woods looking for Bigfoot doesn't mean anything else that is in those woods isn't going to show up, or, in a house or wherever that you happen to be investigating. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And like when you're talking about this orb that you saw, it's like when you were Bigfooting, it's like, for all you know, the orb could have been Bigfooting too. Right? The orb could have been like, whatever is the origin of the orb might be like, yeah, I hear Bigfoot's hanging around out here, so we're going to go check it out tonight. And then they're like, oh, shit, a human. We better, we better fucking get out of here because they're going to see us or something. Who knows? It could be, I feel like it is that complex. It's like a weird tapestry of strangeness. Now, you mentioned Dogman. You're based in Wisconsin. That's kind of like Dogman country. I mean, what do you think of this phenomena? Because I've talked about it recently. We had Lauren Coleman on a few weeks back, kind of just talking about the late great Linda Godfrey, who put Beast of Bray Road on the map, and how it's like very hard to kind of like wrap your mind around the dog man because of the legs, and how it's like, how is this possible, and like what the fuck is this thing, kind of thing. And even she, at the time when I met her a few years back before she passed away, God rest her soul, she was like, I'm flummoxed by the incongruity of this creature, and I'm sure you've looked at it quite a bit, and you're in Dogman country. So I mean, what do you make of this weird creature?
Yeah, we've actually gotten a chance to investigate a couple times on Lee Hampel's property, and Lee Hampel's been on Expedition X. He's pretty familiar with like a lot of the television community and stuff like that. But his property actually backs up to Bray Road, and he's had sightings on his property and stuff. And we've gone down there and worked on his property and stuff. We've never come across anything I can definitively say is Dogman related there. I 100% believe his story, but we've never captured any. We've captured a lot of weird stuff on his property, but nothing ground based, nothing Dogman, I guess. But we have done a lot of work out there. We always go looking out there. It's right down the road from Burlington. So every time that we'd go to Burlington, we'd get done, we'd head over to Bray Road. It's about 10 minutes down the road, and we'd circle around. But we've never come across anything. As far as what it is, I mean, you have this being that is cited just as much as Bigfoot. You know, we have just as many reports, just as many sighting reports and stuff, not just here in Wisconsin, but all over the country, all over the world. But unlike Bigfoot, you don't have a fossil record. You don't have any kind of backstory to where this creature came from. You know, with Bigfoot, you can link it to the great apes. You can link it possibly to Gigantopithecus or early hominids or stuff like that. But the Dogman just is its own thing. Mm-hmm. I still am lenient to not to go into it being paranormal or supernatural, because you still have a lot of very animalistic traits to it. You do see or hear reports of it eating, you know, like roadkill, stuff like that. So it's a flesh and blood animal that is eating on the side of the road or having that. You hear stories of it drinking out of water. You hear stories of young ones. So you have these very animalistic tendencies of it that don't lend to the supernatural side as much.
Right.
But you also do, like Linda wrote about stuff where people were seeing like two-dimensional creatures that looked like they were a cutout of a dog man, and they'd be standing in the field and they would turn and they'd still be like two-dimensional.
Yeah.
And you get those reports, and it's like, I don't know what to do with that either. You know, I like to see things with my own eyes. I like to experience it and quantify it that way. And with Bigfoot, I have had Bigfoot experiences. I have heard them. I have seen them on thermal. I've been very, very close, within like 10 feet of these creatures, in my opinion. And I can put a feeling and stuff to that. But these things, I haven't had that encounter yet, so I don't know what to make of it. I don't know what it is. I believe they exist. I believe that they're probably flesh and blood, at least for the most part. But I don't know. There's a lot of history and stories and stuff of dog-headed humans going back all the way to Christopher Columbus and, you know, the early settlers and stuff. And there's this whole island over, I think it's off of Japan and stuff, that was supposed to have these dog-headed beings on it, that when they went to the island, they would communicate and everything. They could understand the language, but they communicated with barks and growls and stuff of their own. Oh. They had their own culture. And there's several different explorers that wrote about this. And then of course you also have, you know, Egyptian lore and stuff like that, of you have these Anubis and other dog-headed deities and the Canaanites and that whole stuff. So there's folklore and mythology of this, but even in that mythology and stuff and stories and legends, these things are the body of a person, the head of a canine.
Yeah.
And they don't talk about seeing these things running around on all fours, or, you know, like they don't describe them as werewolves. So even with the stories and the folklore and legends that you do have about these beings, we're still not getting the consistency of what these things are. These things are still something completely different that hasn't popped up in that. So I don't know what to make of them. It's an ongoing mystery there.
Yeah, it's a really flummoxing entry into the world of cryptozoology, because I remember like when I came along, and it came along a little around shortly after I got into all this. So it was like, it's a new thing, relatively speaking, in cryptozoology. So it's been really kind of like interesting to see it develop and become one of the big sort of players, if you will, among the various creatures. It's like, it's just really interesting. The dog man. Yeah. It's flummoxing. It really is hard to kind of wrap your mind around what exactly it is. It's very weird. So you said you had a Bigfoot experience.
Several, yes.
So while you were out looking on a Bigfoot expedition, let's say, I don't want to say hunt because let's not load it up. But so you were Bigfooting and you. So what was the experience like when you were like 10? You think you were like 10 feet from it? Tell me about that.
Several times we have been very close. I have been growled at on 2 different occasions from roughly 10, 15 feet away, and nothing showed up on thermal. And I mean, so the first time that we went down to Bray Road, or not Bray Road, the Burlington Woods down there, which is by Bray Road out of Elkhorn, we were parked in the parking lot, and this branch up on the little hill on the side of the parking lot before you go into the woods and the trails, and we're shining a light along this, and this tree branch, which we actually came to find out was an entire tree, was kind of bent over like something was peeking out from behind it, like pulling it down. When I shined my light along there, I had a big spotlight from the car, and this tree branch or tree shot back up like something stepped back from the light. So that was our first experience there. And I don't know what that was. It wasn't a bird. It was, we didn't see anything fly out of the tree. It was too heavy. So we just assumed that this is something that was pulling the tree branch down and looking. So 2 weeks later, I said we took a team back down there. There's 4 of us, and we went back in these woods, and we went up to that area, and we actually found tracks, like human barefoot tracks. Not big. They were, I want to say 4 inches wide by 9 inches or 8 inches long. Okay. So they were not an adult, massive creature. They were small, but they were barefoot human walking through the woods there. And this is, I don't know why anyone would be up on the hill where that was. It was not by the trail. It was off in a different area. This was at night. We were the only car in the parking lot. There's woods and a farm field on the other side of it. So there's no reason why a person should have been there. That doesn't
walking
mean
around barefoot.
Correct.
That's the weird part. It's like, even if it was someone like messing with you, it's like, who the fuck in their right mind is going to be running around barefoot in the dark in the woods? That's just kind of like crazy.
Who would know that we were there? So that was the other thing, But so we came back a couple weeks later after that. It was 2 weeks after that. And we went through the woods. And when we got there, it poured. Like when we pulled into the parking lot, it was pouring rain, and it stopped raining. And so then we started hiking through the woods, and we got to this one area. There's a ridge, and the ridge goes up. There's like marsh down at the bottom, and then there's a ridge. Other side is a marsh and a power line cut. So we're at the base of that ridge, walking along, and we hear something moving around on the top of the ridge between us and the power line cut. And we're scanning thermal up there, and we're not really finding anything. And we start hearing whistles from that ridge across the marsh to the other side where this farm field and where the footprints came from. Oh, wow. So they're just one whistles back and forth. Like, what is that? I don't know. So we're gonna make our way back up, and we're gonna go up on this top of this ridge and see what's moving around up there. Okay, so we start backtracking down the bottom path, and as soon as we start moving back that way to go back to the top of the ridge, something on the other side of the lower marsh where these whistles had come from rips a huge branch off a tree. Oh, wow. So we continued on. We went up on this top of this ridge, and we didn't find anything up there. So we came back out onto the power line cut that goes along the ridge curves, goes under the power lines, and then goes to the other side of the woods over there and continues on into the woods. And we're standing on top of this power line cut looking down into the marsh on that side. And out of the woods right next to us comes the deepest guttural growl that any of us have ever heard. And we all just kind of freeze and look towards it. And we're like, did you hear that? Yeah, that wasn't thunder. That was right there in the woods. And it took us a couple minutes, and I was like, I'm going to go in there. That's what we're here for, So I took the thermal, and I went right back in there and didn't find anything. So we continued on, and we made it through the rest of the woods, came back out. And this was all during the day. So then it got dark. We went and ate, came back. It got dark, and we went back into that same ridge at night. And on thermal, I didn't have a video thermal yet at that time. I just had a handheld picture thermal. And I got three pictures of what looks like a creature upright on the one side of the trail, walking off and down the backside of that ridge.
Yeah.
So it's like up, shorter, and then down.
Gotcha.
Were the three pictures I got. And you could see it moving. You couldn't like make it out the shape or whatever, but it was hotter than anything else in there. And I don't know what it was. It wasn't another person in there. We had, there was three of us in the woods, and then there was two people out in the parking lot in a car. So anybody that came in this woods, you'd know if, there was anybody else in there.
Right.
And we walked a little further, and then on the opposite side of the trail was another heat signature standing behind a tree. And it looks like half of a person when you blow it up, and it's like a head with a conical dome, and then an arm, shoulder, the body, and a leg, and it's behind this tree, and it just stood there. And this thing had to be like 10 feet away from us. We've gone back and looked at the tree and stuff that we got pictures of, and this thing had to be like 10 feet away from us. But this was the first time that we'd ever legitimate gone looking for Bigfoot and stuff. So we were, I guess you want to say, very unprepared for that. And we're just
Yeah.
oh, yeah, I don't know what that is. Let's move on. And looking back, that thing was right there. Right.
Well,
there.
what do you, well, first I'm going to ask you, have any sort of protection while you're in these situations?
One of the guys did have a gun on him at the time. Yeah. But
what do you do in that? Would you really, if you saw the thing, would you go up to, I guess you kind of, it's a mixed bag, right? You don't know unless you're in the situation, but it's what do you do when you approach the thing? Do you think that, so could you see, you saw it on the thermal, was it so dark you couldn't see anything in front of you, or was it would you have been able to see? Okay, all right. So it's not necessarily that this was invisible. It was just off in the dark.
Yes, there's at the time it was August, and it is very underbrush, very thick. Mm-hmm. So you could see these things, but if you shine your light, it's just leaves. You can't see through it at all. So that was our first experience there, and we had a couple other things happen. We were down there almost every week for 2-3 months. Every weekend down there looking for stuff. And we had tons of other weird experiences there. We did get a howl out of the woods, and what we believe was we were standing out in the parking lot, and one of these creatures came walking out of the opposite side from where we had been out onto that power line cut and stood just at the edge of the woods. So you could see the silhouette, but that was it. It wasn't clear enough that you get a picture of it or anything from as far away as we were, but you could see that thing standing up there because it's several hundred feet from the parking lot up across a marsh when you're standing in the parking lot. So it's not close to you, but you could see this thing come out. So that was our experiences there. I've had some other experiences with these creatures throwing rocks across the Pelican River in Rhinelander. And there was 3 of them throwing rocks across the Pelican River at night. I managed to get one of them on thermal that time as well on video. Yeah. And it's again through a tree on our side of the bank and then across probably about 200 to 250 feet of water, and then on the other shoreline. So, and then behind tree cover there as well. So we can't see anything with our eyes, but we're looking at this heat signature on the camera, and you can watch what looks like an arm go backwards, an underhand throw, and then hear the rock splash. So it's not, it's not a very clear 100% video. You had to have been there. You had to know the situation and everything that went along with it for it to mean anything to you. But we did get that. I videoed it for 10 minutes of this heat signature, and it didn't move after that. It just stood there. So eventually I tried to move down shore and get another angle at it, and I could not find it again. I think that it actually moved off as soon as I moved away when it saw my light change and stuff.
Right.
The next day we went over there, and we actually were able to cast 3 different size footprints and a handprint on the other shore. So there was 3 of these creatures over there. And then the most The other time you asked about being growled at was up at the Hide and Adventure with Craig and Barb Sulk's property up there, 80 acres private property, Upper Michigan. And me and Craig were doing a night hike on the property, and we were coming around the back of the property, and literally, again, about 10 feet away from us, just off this, he had a mowed property, dense woods back there as well. And about 10 feet away, we both heard this deep guttural growl. And he turned around immediately and was like, "Was that you?" And I said, "No." And I got the thermal out, and there's a little bit of woods, like maybe 5 feet of trees. And then there's like this watery, marshy spot back there.
Yeah.
And that's it. Like then there's like another like 10 feet, and then there's more woods behind that. But there's like this little open area with water, like a ditch back there.
Okay.
And there was nothing there, nothing on thermal at all. So either this thing was farther back and growled that loud that we heard it, or moved that fast, or was invisible, or I have no idea.
Right.
But it was right there, and it was not on thermal or anything. So
now, when you're in these situations, do you try to communicate? Not talking like wood knocks and shit. I mean, just generally, I mean, I feel like I would sort of maybe just verbally communicate, be out there and be like, "Hey, we're just visiting your area. We come in peace. We don't mean you any harm, whatever." You know, it's almost like when you see, and you've gone on ghost investigations. It's almost like you see on ghost investigations, people kind of like talk to the ghost. I feel like I would be compelled maybe to talk to the creature to try and establish, for lack of a better term, some kind of rapport where it's like, "Look, I'm here. I get it. I'm in your realm." The woods is a creepy place anyway, because it's like you're the outsider really when you go into the woods, whether it's a legendary creature like Bigfoot or Dogman, or just like a bear or whatever. It's like you're the outsider here, man. You're kind of the guest. So it's like, "Look, I'm here. I'm visiting. Whatever." Do you ever try that sort of approach?
So in Rhinelander, when we were having rocks thrown at us, I tried talking to it because I wanted to see if it was a person over there doing it.
Yeah.
But we've done a lot of work up in Rhinelander, gone in there several times. There's no way a person could get to where these people were without a flashlight. It was very thick and hard to get down to by the water's edge there. And there was no lights. Nothing came down there. There was nobody like moving in or out of there. Any person would not. It wasn't a person. We'll put it that way. So I'm yelling across there. I'm like, "Hello, who are you?" And yelling across this water, and nothing came back. So we didn't get anything that time. The other times that I've had this, I think I'm just, I had, it was actually the same night as that growl up at the Hide and Adventure. We continued on walking, and there was two other things that happened that night. The first one was we were walking down a trail towards the back of the property from kind of like at a right angle of where we heard that growl. Mm-hmm. And we got back to this car turnaround on the property. He used to have a deer stand back there. And so he'd be able to drive back there. And on the way down this area next to this pond, we heard what was the only time we've heard this on the property, but we heard what could be described as the samurai chatter of one of these beings just kind of like talking off in the distance.
Yeah.
And it's really really short. I did get it on audio and stuff, but it's just like, whoa, 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 and that's it.
Right.
So we continued back there, and me and Craig are standing back to back in this area, and we feel very sure that there's at least one, maybe two of these creatures back there with us at this time. And what we used to do was there was this big area of the property that they did like tours and stuff on. They had signs and that around the property, and they would take you and tell you about the evidence and stuff that had happened there. Okay. And we would have people sit at base camp there, and then we'd send a team to the back of the property until it got weird. And then we would bring that team back, and what would happen would be these creatures would follow you back out of there. And when you passed base camp, Base camp would be there sitting dark, quiet, and everything. They would get all the action as these creatures came past.
Gotcha.
So that's what we were doing. My mom and I think Barb were sitting at base camp this night, and me and Craig were walking to the back of the property. And when we got back there, we had the growl, we had the samurai chatter that night. And then when we got back there, we literally heard and felt one of these creatures walking through the woods behind us where his deer stand used to be.
Yeah.
So you could feel thum, thum, thum as it walked through. And I watched this back on video and I think to myself, I mean, there's something back there. Was it a Bigfoot? I don't know, but there's nothing else that big on his property. You know, we had trail cameras all over there. We know all the animals that are there.
Yeah.
There's nothing else that could have been. And me and Craig stood back to back, just frozen. And I think to myself, well, why didn't you go back there and look? Why didn't you take the thermal? You know, there's a little bit of woods there again, and then there's an opening where he had like it cleaned out so he could hunt. So this thing is walking through that clearing back there, and just a 50, 100 feet away from us, you know. And the only thing that was going through my head was whatever's going to happen right now is going to happen. Either it's going to pop out, it's going to see us, or, you know, it's going to just move on. Either it's going to come out here and kill us and, you know, do whatever it's going to do. But if I go back there, this is over. If I chase this thing, it's going to go and nothing is going to happen.
Gotcha.
And if I stand here, I'm going to observe, I'm going to experience, and you may see it. You may have an experience. You may hear something. You're not going to scare it off.
Right.
And so that's what we did. We stood there and waited for whatever this was to move off. And I'll never know what it was or never know what we didn't see because we just stood there. And then after that, we kind of stayed there a little longer. And then we walked back to base camp and then back out to the main road and stuff and did the rest of our usual hike and that. But I wasn't afraid. I just was waiting. So.
Yeah. Interesting. Sort of letting it make the move, if you will.
Right. Yeah.
Interesting. Now, based on your experiences, your research, I mean, you may be reticent, and I understand I'm the same kind of way. I don't like to put a finger on what this is, but do you have sort of any ideas about the Bigfoot? Do you think that it could be paranormal in nature, or at least some kind of like cross between paranormal and natural in a way where it's like maybe it has some kind of abilities we don't necessarily know that might you would classify them as paranormal, but it turns out maybe if you could study the Bigfoot, you'd be like, okay, this is apparently something it can do that seems paranormal, but it turns out it's not. It's actually just a natural ability or whatever.
Yeah, from my experiences, I would say that these things are a natural living being that has been here. Like it's an animal or humanoid species. Yeah. I don't think that it has any supernatural abilities like paranormal wise that we consider throwing into that category. I think all of the stuff that it does, as weird and supernatural seeming as it is, can be explained by like ambush predators. So creatures that hunt don't let their prey know where they are. They disappear very quickly back into the brush. They remain very still instead of running off, to the point where if you walk towards what you saw, it's probably still there. You just don't notice it. And, you know, a lot of these times you hear the people talk about seeing them and they see him standing on the side of the road, and all of a sudden when they get closer, they see it drop down on all fours or onto its belly instead of running off into the woods or something. Because if you run, you make noise, you move, you draw attention to yourself. But if you just drop down and lay in the ditch or something, you're going to be camouflaged. And the likelihood of being seen is a lot less than if you take off running through the woods and making a lot of noise like a deer or something. Right. I think when you put all that stuff together of being a predator or a opportunistic predator, we'll say, and the ability to camouflage and stuff like that, that this is going to explain a lot of why they're so hard to find and why they're so hard to see, or why you have a lot of those paranormal things. On the other side of that, I also think that, you know, when you talk about, like the mind speak or any of that kind of stuff, or the more woo categories in that, I think that these things, whatever they are more in tune with the natural world. And they have to be, because when you're out in the woods, your senses are a lot more in tune than ours are. We're used to, lights and, easy life. And these things are used to their environment. They know every smell. They know every thing out there. They have a much more natural life as well. They don't have all the chemicals and the problems like that. And I think that may be why that, you have these people that have the ability of, telepathy or, mental psychics, mediums, all that stuff. And if they have that ability, it makes sense that these other animals would as well. So that they, being more in tune with nature and that ability, their abilities of those natures, their paranormal abilities would be enhanced or better. So I think that could be also why, and again, that's paranormal, but it's not. It really isn't when you look at it that way.
Right, exactly. Yeah. We kind of explored this, I think, a while back with a different guest on the show, Miguel Romero, Red Pill Junkie, where it was kind of like, this stuff, we call it paranormal, like the psi stuff, but it's like, really, it's probably, if it exists, and it seems like it does, it probably is some actually like natural ability, natural thing in various ways that us and probably other things can do. Like I was at my buddy's place watching the football on Sunday, and he went to pick up his kid, and I stayed behind with the two dogs. And this wasn't intentional. This was kind of like, it just kind of dawned on me when this happened. So he goes across town to get his kid, and like, he's gone for like maybe 15 minutes, but like 5 minutes before he gets back, the dogs like jump up and fucking like run to the door. And I like checked the time, because I'm like, that it dawned on me. I'm like, the dogs fucking know he's coming home. And so I like looked at my phone, and then like he didn't roll in till like 5-7 minutes later. And I'm like, you fucking nut, those dogs were reacting like he had just pulled in the driveway. And it's like, they knew that he fucking must have just left the kid's friend's house and was on his way back. I mean, I don't know. I can't get into the mind of a dog, but it was, they fucking knew. And it's like, you're telling me that's like psi ability, man. I don't know. Like, I don't know how else to describe it. I'm sure someone will be like, well, they can smell 5 miles away. Like, get the fuck out of here. Like, they knew he was on his way back. So, I think that kind of stuff is like actually like a natural thing that's probably been kind of bred out of the human race by the powers that be, who are like, we don't want you to fucking be psychic, because that would be bad for us to manage all of you people. So it's best if you all don't know that you can be psychic. And it's entirely possible that the Bigfoot would have that kind of ability and stuff. So, I mean, it kind of adds up if you really pull the camera back and think about it a little bit more.
Yeah, there's actually an experiment that they did with dogs in that nature that they would measure when their owners left their job and come home versus if they left their job, went to the store and came home. And it wasn't until they left the store and were on the way home did the dogs actually have a reaction. They would wake up out of a dead sleep or whatever and run to the door, like you said. But there's actual scientific experiments and stuff that prove that that's an actual phenomenon. So there's a lot of weird stuff that's science that a lot of people would just still throw into the paranormal side of things. So.
Right. Absolutely. So, so it would stand to reason that Bigfoot could possibly have these kind of abilities, just like these dogs seem to have like some kind of ability. So it's like, and even more, and they're like domesticated or whatever. So they're kind of more like us. So imagine an animal in the woods, what kind of weird, like psi type abilities it might have. Who knows? It's pretty wild. And you can't also discount the possibility that I think that we make the mistake sometimes or like just sort of the community, if you will, at large. So it's like, okay, well, it's either a flesh and blood creature or it's like a paranormal entity or whatever. It's like, could be fucking both. Like, we don't know what we're dealing with out there. My friend Josh Cutchin wrote a fantastic book with Tim Renner, about sort of the Wildergeist, he called it, I think. Like the paranormal, like ghosts of the woods, essentially. That these could be like, not necessarily there could be a fucking Bigfoot running around and a supernatural thing that they're very similar, because it's like, well, how else? They're both running around the fucking woods.
Mm-hmm. That's Christopher Noel talks about as well, the fact that, when you have these paranormal Bigfoot encounters, it could be just a ghost of a Bigfoot.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Or even I've sort of put forward the idea like a projection of like a UFO or whatever. They're like, if the or whatever is like out there, if it needs to manifest, it might be like, okay, this time I'm going to manifest as a fucking Bigfoot because that's what this guy is in his head or whatever, So it's like, sometimes it's like, it looked like a deer and then it fucking vanished. It's like, well, they could do it as a Bigfoot. Why not? You know what I mean? I think you open your mind to the realm of possibilities in this thing, because we really don't know, what the fuck is going on. So when you go out into the woods, do you try to like photo? I guess you use the thermal, but like, I mean, what are you looking for beyond the experience? Do you try to like actually photograph this thing? I suppose it's difficult because you're in the fucking dark, but do you have like spotlights or anything to try and like get a handle on it?
So when my team goes out, we've learned from past experiences that redundancy is your best friend. And whenever we go out at night, we run minimum of 2 cameras apiece on us. So we have a night vision camera and a GoPro camera. So we shoot in pitch black as well as regular light. And then if you see something, you flip on your flashlight, you have it on both spectrums. But you also have it covered if something happens, in low light situation. Some of us on the team also have taken to wearing cameras on the back of your backpack or your back of your body, I guess. So you have stuff filming behind you as well.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
So. We start filming the second we get out of the vehicle, because you never know what's going to happen. Sometimes we film in the vehicle driving. If we know that we're in a certain area that has activity, we'll run the GoPros on the dashboard or something and then take them out running and mount them on our head or chest or whatever we're going to do. So, and film the whole time.
All right. But as of yet, you haven't like gotten any, you haven't gotten the money shot yet, right? Which is it's impossible. It's like not like you're alone in this futility. It's like it's a maddening thing that seems impossible to really fucking get locked down.
Mm-hmm. The best evidence that we've gotten so far is we've gotten what I believe is one on a trail camera picture. And then we've also gotten the we'll say three pictures on thermal, or three pictures on thermal, and then the rock video. Oh, and then the crawler video from Hayden as well. So we have 2 videos of thermal and then the 3 pictures on thermal. So
okay, now so you're out there looking for Bigfoot, and one of your guys has a gun. Do you have you discussed this at all? Like, okay, what's the protocol on when you shoot at this thing? Because there's a big debate, long-standing debate in the Bigfoot community. Like, do you shoot it? Do you not shoot it? I've kind of always been like, look, you got to shoot it, because we got to, like, if we want to really prove this thing. But there's a part of me that's like, dude, don't shoot fucking Bigfoot. Come on, that's horrible. So I'm kind of like in both camps. But there's also a part of me that's like, I'm not out there looking for it. And I feel like if I had a gun, I'd be like, oh shit, I don't know what. Then you're really your ass is on the line, because you might just shoot a meth head or something. Like you might have stumbled upon some meth lab in the fucking woods, and it's like, oh shit, I just shot a tweaker. But have you guys discussed this? So when do we, if at all, do we ever fucking go for it here on this, or is it just like as a safety measure?
Right. So none of us carry a weapon of a caliber big enough to shoot a Bigfoot. It is all for protection of smaller things like packs of wolves or coyotes. And again, it's not to shoot any of them, but more like you shoot towards the ground and hope that the bang of the thing will scare them off. So it's more audio protection than actual physical protection. We're not out there to hunt or do anything like that. It's just to scare off whatever would come at us, because even carrying a weapon, if you're actually in a situation where Bigfoot is coming at you, it's not going to do you any good anyway. I don't believe that these creatures are actively going to chase after you. We've heard a lot of stories of, people getting run out of the woods, but they're never physically assaulted out of the woods. You get like rocks thrown at you and stuff like that and chased out. But anytime that there's this physical violence of these creatures, it's all because they were shot at first. And then you have the actual assaults of people with these things. And I think that's the issue there. So I don't think that shooting at them or trying any of that stuff is going to do any good. So it's again, just more for protection to scare off any of the smaller stuff that you run into.
Gotcha. All right. Yeah. Because I've never been in a position to even be, to have the opportunity to shoot a Bigfoot. So it's kind of like, yeah, I'd be like terrified to be out there in the first place hearing all that shit. I'd be like, oh, fuck. All right. What are we going to do? What are we going to do, dude?
I've heard a lot of weird things out in the woods. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like nature can play tricks on you, though, too, because it's like animals are weird. Some of them, I think it's like foxes or something. They like make these like screeches and screams and shit. It's like, I thought it sounds like there's a woman being attacked out in the woods. And like, if someone who knows animals will be like, no, dude, that's a fox. Actually, that's the noise they make. It just sounds like, so you can almost see how historical things would be where it's like, that's a banshee. Don't fucking go in the woods. So it's, yeah.
Owls make a lot of weird noises as well. Yeah. And very close to you, they can make some weird noises. We've done some howls and calls and stuff and gotten owls responding back very close and very loud. And that scares the crap out of you when you get this. The one call up in the mountain area is like, whoa! And it sounds very primate sounding when you hear it, and it sends chills up down you. You're like, what the hell is that? Oh, it's just an owl. Okay, moving on with my night. Now that I need new pants, but yeah.
Now, one of the things you mentioned here on the CAPS page is it says you're researching and investigating the possible connection between different phenomena from Bigfoot to aliens, ghosts, and shadow people, fairies, and portals. Portals is what pinged with me, because we have a little bit of a fascination with portals here on Binnall of America. So what's your experience with portals? So
it's really interesting. Supposedly, there's a portal on the Hide and Adventure property. He was told that by some Native Americans there, and it's this like tree that goes up, over, and down. And when they photographed it, it has a weird ripple in the middle of it. Yeah. In the one picture. And so they were told that was a portal there. The other location that we've had some experiences with that is down in the Burlington Woods. It's supposed to be this vortex, and there's supposed to be portals and stuff all over the town of Burlington. But in the woods, there's been a lot of stories of people like going into the woods and disappearing, and then like a week later, a guy will come back and he's like, "Oh, I was just in there for a couple hours," and they're like, "No, you've been gone for a week or so."
Oh wow!
And so when we started the thing that you read is from originally way back when we first started and stuff. We've used that, and that was back when we were working in the Burlington Woods and dealing with that stuff on a regular basis of having these energy vortexes or portals or what have you in there. And luckily, we haven't wandered into any other dimensions or anything yet. But it's always, you can feel like energy shift, like you're walking through a gateway or something.
Yeah.
And the Burlington Woods is very unique in that aspect because, like I said, there's different sections to it. And it's very, very cut and dry. There's a fairy woodland spirit, Bigfooty section, and then there's a paranormal section.
Yeah.
And these sections do not cross. We have never had Bigfoot experiences or anything fairy or fae on the other side of the woods. And we've never had anything paranormal, weird, shamanic on this side of the woods. It's a cut and dry cut through the woods there. And all this weird phenomenon happens on this side, and that weird phenomenon happens on that side.
What's the fairy phenomena?
We've had a conversation with a fey creature there that said that it was fey. We did it like a paranormal investigation with an EMF meter. We got these weird spikes and we started asking questions. You can watch it on our first episode on our YouTube, season 1, episode 1, Burlington Woods. We're talking. So when you walk in, there's the fairy circle, which is this area of the woods where you go in and you're supposed to tribute like M&Ms or a little piece of jewelry or something like to the fairy to say, you know, we want safe passage through the woods and that kind of thing, to tribute the woods and ask for passage through it. So we always do that when we go in. And then once you get past that, then you come to these 2 guardian trees. There's a male spirit and a female spirit. And if you go over there, you can touch them, you can get energy and healing from it and that. So the male guardian tree has now fallen over. It fell over in November of 2020. So right after we had started going in there. And after that happened, there was a time where these woods just were dead. There was nothing weird, nothing magical, nothing interesting happening in them for quite a while. And everyone that we talked to, because there's a lot of people, Mary Sutherland literally wrote a book on it. She did tours down there for years. You know, she takes people in there. We talked to a lot of people who have gone there, and everyone agreed, like, whatever was going on here stopped. And now it's started to come back. So what we've brought our team of mediums and stuff in there recently in the past 2 years, and the spirit that was inhabiting that tree has moved to a new tree now. Yeah. So farther back off the trail is this new guardian tree. But anyway, so at the time, the time that we were in there, this male guardian tree had this like big burrow hole at the base of it. And we were getting energy spikes out of this hole. And we said, you know, are you the guardian? Yes. Are you the guardian of the woods? Yes. You know, if you wanted to kick us out, could you? Yes. You know, is it up to you whether or not we're here or not? Yes. You know, all these, you know, and we're asking other questions as well, and we're getting no responses, you know, typical paranormal thing.
Right.
But we got this information that this is the guardian of the woods there that's doing this. And at the end of the session, we say, you know, we appreciate you letting us come in your woods. It's a very nice woods. You know, we're going to go now. And as soon as we do that, this massive, biggest group I've heard of coyotes all goes off at once.
Oh, wow.
It was so surreal to just say like, okay, we're going to leave now. Thank you for having us. And just like 20 coyotes erupted at that exact moment. Jesus. And just sent chills down your whole body and stuff. And it was just absolutely surreal of this, you know, there's no reason why that should have happened the way it did at that particular moment to set that off. But yeah, we've had a couple other weird paranormal and stuff in there, but yeah.
I like how you're you're taking sort of the practices of the ghost hunt and you're bringing it into the woods. I think that's really, I mean, I'm sure you're not the only one doing it, but you're the first I've talked to that is. So I feel like it's really very clever, innovative sort of approach to this. Because you hear like, oh, people go on a Bigfoot hunt and it's like the wood knocks, you know, the howls, they kind of do like your standard. It's like, oh, well, what if you brought the fucking ghost shit to the woods to see if that might pop a response from this thing. So it's interesting that you've been doing it this way. Because it's a refreshing sort of take on the Bigfoot and just sort of like forest exploration, if you will.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. We want to be able to, we're not here to convince anyone this stuff is real. We're here to do our investigation. That's why all of our videos, you know, we've gotten a lot more professional, a lot more higher quality video and recording and, you know, over the years. But, you know, we just film for our own research. So when you watch our stuff, it's just GoPros and cameras that we're filming. It's all first person perspective and that, because we're there to do work, not make a TV show, not do all this stuff. This is, you know, real. And we don't want to put forward, you know, well, this is what we think it is. This is what happened. And when we're going to put that forward and say, this is what happened, I want to rule out everything else. because anytime that you can say, well, this was this, but this, I have no idea what this is because my EMF meter does this, it never does this. And this is why. And when you can actually understand your equipment and how it works, all the things that can false trigger it, all the things that, affect it, and you can rule all that stuff out and still have those anomalous readings, that anomalous evidence, then you actually can put that forward and say, hey, I don't know what this is, but I know it's not something normal. It's not caused by the power lines that are there or this or that or the other thing. This is something completely unique and completely its own thing.
Yeah, and it's really interesting too, because you hear these stories about like people go on the ghost hunts and shit, and it's like, well, your equipment might be fucked up because like you're near an outlet or whatever, kind of like what you're saying about the power lines. But if you're like out in the middle of the fucking woods and things are acting weird, I mean, I don't know. I'm sure there's skeptics who can try and explain it, but to me, it's like, all right, well, it's certainly not a fucking outlet or faulty wiring or a pipe, the heat, the house settling, or all this, that kind of shit. It's like, oh, clearly there's something weird going on here. Yeah, it's very remarkable.
We've actually gone as far as to do experiments specifically in the Burlington Woods where we ran, we have an EDI. So it measures humidity, temperature, electromagnetic field, vibration, all that stuff, and it gives you a digital readout. And we walked these woods several times over the course of a time period in different times of day because we thought that, all these experiences happen to people in there at night, right? So if you're going in there at night and people are using their lights, their television, they're coming home from work, that your power lines are running more energy. So is it possible that the EMF field that these electrical power lines are giving off more energy at night than they are during the day and affecting people's experiences in the woods? And we've actually gone through and proved that that was not true, that the power lines give off pretty much the same amount of EMF field in specific areas throughout the woods consistently at any time of day. So when you can do that and look at it from a scientific point of view and say that, and this is the stuff that people don't want to sit and watch on YouTube or on a TV show, the actual science behind it. Like they just want to go, oh, well, it's just the power lines causing these, your EMF meter to spike. Well, it's not. Here's why. But you don't want to sit and watch us, measure this electromagnetic field for, half an hour of the episode. So let's take that and throw it away, but know that it's already been done, and I can show you the 8 hours of video that shows that we did this, but you don't want to watch it.
Right. Well, setting aside the possibility that like Bigfoot could be a nocturnal creature, have you ever done anything in the daytime? Because to me, if there's this sort of like paranormal whatever going on, it's like it's not necessarily confined to the nighttime. Maybe you would experience something interesting in the daytime. And maybe it might not even necessarily paranormal, but it could be kind of construed that way, kind of like the coyotes you're talking about, where it's like, what if you went into the woods and you were doing sort of this investigatory work and, I don't know, a deer fucking like walked by on 2 feet and then fucking went down and ran away. Like just something really out of the ordinary that would be just weird, where it's like, okay, maybe this is the phenomena. Maybe this is what it is, but it's manifesting as, I don't know, all of a sudden, I don't know, like a deer and a coyote walking together through the fucking woods. I don't know. I can't come up with it. I'm not paranormal. I can't come up with a proper, idea of what weird would be. But I think you got to get what I'm saying. Like something really out of the ordinary. We're like, that's kind of fucking weird. Like, are you seeing that? Like, I'll give you a good example of different, but it's like we went to see some ghost lights, train track down in Tennessee. And it was like we were in the middle of fucking nowhere in this like one horse town, nobody around. Like we pulled in the first on this dirt road to go to the tracks, and like one car pulled down. And guy's like, "Hey, what are you doing here?" We're like, "Oh, we're just coming around, hang out." No one came around. Right as we're getting ready to leave, then some other person like drives down. I was like, "That's kind of," and I'm like, and everybody else was like, "Oh, looking for lights and shit." And I'm like, the weird part was that was the fucking weird part, that like that like we only saw people right when we came in and right when we fucking left. Like, what the fuck? There's something to that, I think. But to jump back to the daytime aspect of all this, I mean, have you ever kind of looked at this, with the benefit of daylight?
As you're talking, I have one story that comes to mind that stands out very weird daylight thing. And we were out in the woods, me and a hunter, and he was taking me back in the forest where he had seen a Bigfoot while he was coming back from hunting one night. And we get to this back part of the woods, and I'm looking out at this kind of like clearing, kind of open area, but trees and stuff, and I see a fern. This goes back to my paranormal story that we started the show on, but this one fern is just lightly bobbing, like waving at me, and everything else, there's no wind, there's nothing else, but this one fern is wiggling, and I'm like, what the heck is going on over there? So I walk towards it. Well, as I got closer to it, it stops, and about 50 feet in another direction off that way, another fern just starts wiggling in the same manner. So I walk towards that. And when I get over there, where I had originally been standing, a tree fell over.
What's going on with you in the trees, Barnaby?
I don't know. I run into them a lot.
We have a third tree story.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. I got another tree story. The one time up at the Hiking Adventure, there's a huge 20-foot teepee structure on the property at the time. It has been knocked over by weather now in the last couple of years, but it was there for several years. And we had done all kinds of experiments with this. And the one day we thought, okay, well, what if these things are paranormal? Let's treat this as a paranormal experiment. So we set up REM pods at this thing. We set up EMF meters, all this stuff at this teepee. And we started asking questions, like an EVP session to see, right. Did you build this? Why did you build this? What is it for? And while we're doing this, I can't remember offhand what we asked. But can you give us a sign or something that you built this? Yeah. And from the hardwoods, the neighbor's property, a tree fell over right when we asked that. Go.
All right.
And we couldn't find the tree. Like, we're looking at his woods, Craig and Barb's property is very dense, natural woods. The neighbor's property had been like clear cut and then replanted. So it's all rows of trees. You can see all the way through it. Hardwood trees, very easy to look through at this time. Can't find where that tree was. It was right there, fell over, huge crash.
Yeah.
No idea where it was. Can't find it.
Ghost tree.
It was right on cue of when we said, can you give us a sign or, show us, this is yours, whatever. And whatever it happened to be. But right then this whole tree came over, and Craig was actually looking that way at the time. And he just turns around to me like, what the heck, what are you doing? And he was not like a paranormal guy at all. He did not like that stuff. It kind of scared him and that. And so we're like, okay, we want permission to do this. And he goes, okay, if you think it'll, get a response or something. And it did. So I don't know how to interpret that response, but it got a response.
So now you've mentioned this hiding adventure multiple times now. What is this? Like a property that these folks rent out for people to do, I guess paranormal investigations?
No, it's so in the late 90s, Craig and Barb Salk bought 80 acres of private property in Upper Michigan as hunting. They live on the property, they hunt on the property, and they put up trail cameras all over the property to monitor the deer and the bear and all these different creatures throughout the year for hunting
and tweakers. And tweakers who can run it through.
Other people off the property. Yes, exactly. And so in that time, they had all these trail cameras on the property to document everything that was going on there and all the stuff that happened on the property. And in 2012, in May, they got a series of 3 game camera photos And the middle photo, there's 3 pictures of this deer like sniffing a stump, which had like deer bait on it. So it was like licking this bait stump. Yeah. And in the background is this weird anomaly.
Right.
And it only appears in the middle picture.
I thought it looked like a Native American ghost, to be honest with you. I don't know. That was just me because I had nothing to go on. So when I'm looking at the thing, I'm like, that looks like a person, kind of. That looks like a Native American, actually. But I don't know. I mean, I don't know how you interpret it.
Yeah. So you've seen the pictures.
Yes.
Yeah. So they ended up sending these pictures in eventually to Finding Bigfoot. Finding Bigfoot came out and they filmed an episode called the Super Youpers episode on the property. Well, after they filmed this, people wanted to see the photos. They wanted to see the property, the evidence. And Craig and Barb opened up their property as a tourist destination for people to come, hear the stories, see the evidence and stuff, and share their experiences and stuff. So Craig and Barb had this property up until well, they still own it. Barb does. Craig actually got diagnosed with thyroid cancer in October of 2020, and he passed away in 2021 in April. Yeah. And so we had been researching all the way up until the end of 2023, early 2024 up there, and we recently did. They don't do the tours and stuff anymore up there because that was Craig did the tours and everything. But we have taken the evidence that he showed on the tours and we've turned it into the Hide and Adventure exhibit. And we have these big banners and a diorama of the property. We have audio that you can listen to, and we take this around to different conventions and stuff. So you can see these banners of what his original diagrams were on the property. You have little QR codes you can scan and hear him talk about these.
Oh, that's awesome.
The evidences and stuff that was on the property. He wrote his original book was Bigfoot is Hiding, and he was working on the second book when he passed away. So this is audio. I don't know why I picked this up, but
everybody does it. Everybody does it.
Let me show you the cover here. We actually took his first book and his second unpublished book, and then I wrote a third book, and we put this all together, and it's called Bigfoot is Hiding, Hyden. And you can get it on Amazon. It's all 3 books. It's 10 years of research and documentation on the property up there. It's really cool, really good for people. You can get it on Amazon or Wisconsin Cap's website if you want an autographed copy as well. But it's been phenomenal, and we're trying to keep the stories and legacy of Craig and the Hyden alive. But the property, we haven't had too much activity up there in the last couple of years because we believe that these creatures were coming over there to interact and watch Craig. Because, like you said, if they're happy, they're healthy, they're well fed, they need entertainment. And Craig was very anal about what he did. He would mow the lawn up there every Thursday. They would be open Friday, Saturday, Sunday, all summer. And he would be out there for them to interact with and watch and have this stuff happen. And after he passed away, this stuff kind of just stopped. There's been some activity stuff still on the one neighbor's property who still does campouts for his family and things like that. But Barb doesn't go back on the property much anymore since Craig passed away. She hunts up on the front part of the property. So there just hasn't been too much going on up there. So.
Yeah. And you wonder, like, Craig passed away. He's on the other side now, hopefully, that we continue onward, right? And it's just not nothingness. Maybe he's fucking like it. Maybe it just stopped because he's there now. Like he was kind of like fueling it. And now he's part of the ether, if you will. It's interesting. It's interesting kind of thought experiment. Now you got a lot going on, so let's sort of do the plugs.
Yep.
I don't even know where to begin. Well, let's begin with the big one. Well, obviously, the website's wisconsincaps.com. And for folks who, I know you're out there, folks, for the folks who bail, but when we get into the plugs, I'm also going to ask Barnaby about his life as a former professional wrestler.
Yep, absolutely.
So stay through the plugs for that. Because there are people out there that are like, all right, what's the next show? All right. I don't want, okay. We're getting into the plugs. Fuck that. Yep. Stay for the plugs. Stick around for the plugs. Stay for the former pro wrestler talk. So, absolutely. Wisconsin Caps is the website.
Yep, spelled out.
WisconsinCaps.com.
Yes.
Yep, CAPS. And you got CapsCon coming up. That's probably one of your major things you want to mention. So talk about that
absolutely.
and whatever else. You got 2 podcasts. You got all kinds of shit. You got speaking engagements. You're a very busy man. You're a hustler, man. I really respect that. So I want to make sure we sort of lay it all out on the table here. WisconsinCaps.com is the website. And fire away.
Absolutely. So Wisconsin spelled out and then CAPS, Cryptids, Anomalies, and the Paranormal Society.com. You can also find us at Wisconsin Caps on all of your social media platforms from X, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube. It is WI Caps on Instagram. We're also on the new Blue Sky app as well. And our Patreon is Wisconsin Caps as well. Then our convention, we now are running a brand new convention in Wisconsin. It is going to be May 9th, 10th, and 11th this year. We are doing a Bigfoot hike and VIP dinner on Friday night. The convention proper is on Saturday with over 30 vendors. We have Stacy Brown Jr. is going to be coming up from Florida. We have Squatch America, Chad Lewis, myself, and Miranda Young for our speakers. We also are premiering our brand new Bigfoot documentary is going to be premiered that we're working on right now. It's a feature-length documentary that will premiere at the convention. And then that evening on Saturday as well, we have a psychic gallery reading by Angela Zabel. On Sunday, we have paranormal investigations for people that are interested in that as well at a location that was just featured on the new TV series, My Haunted Hometown. So if you guys can't make it out in person, you can also get virtual tickets for this event, and you can live stream all of our speakers at that event throughout the day or at your convenience. We are also offering a online, you can watch the documentary. For the first month, we will give you a link to watch that as well if you're not able to come out to the convention with a virtual ticket that's only $5. And so that's what we got coming up with that. And like I said, we have the documentary is premiering at this event and then will be available for purchase on our Patreon account. I think it's just going to be $3, or you can subscribe to our Patreon and you get it free with that as well, just so that we kind of put it there. And that's coming out. I host 2 weekly podcasts on Doug Hychek, the creator of Monster Quest. Mm-hmm. He runs the Untold Radio Network, and I have 2 shows on there. Mondays, I host Monsters on the Edge, which is all cryptozoology, everything from Bigfoot to chupacabras and lake monsters. On Thursdays, I host the Paranormal Spectrum, which is a mix of anything else weird, wonderful, from remote viewing, paranormal, mediums, aliens, all that stuff is available on there. And then on our YouTube channel, we have a bunch of different documentary series from Cap's Road Trip to we're releasing 3 new shows this year on survivaling and Caps Tech, which is all paranormal equipment and how it works, and then our Just Investigation series as well. So we have a lot of things for you to check out.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, clearly, you have no shortage of passion for this.
No,
subject.
yeah.
Where do you find the energy? Is the real question.
I work 3rd shift, and then I split my day up between doing this. I also do library presentations. We got those coming up. You can check out our public events tab on the website for all the places that we're going to be and the other members of my team. Yeah. And we have all that available as well. I don't sleep much now.
Yeah, geez, dude, I'm impressed. Yeah, I tape like 1, maybe 2 shows a week, and I'm like, fuck that, I'm done for a couple. I got a backlog.
I like the week where I have pre-taped shows and I can sleep in, but that doesn't happen much because I usually have a pre-taped show to tape that day instead. Then so.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I know what you mean. This is what. Yeah, I'm inflicting this upon him right now, folks.
I woke up to this
on the. Oh, very good. Saw on the YouTube. We're talking here on January 30th. It's going to premiere on Saturday. So by the time people are listening, it'll be on the YouTube. The Hairy Man of Dairyland, which is an examination of Bigfoot in Wisconsin.
That is our documentary. Yep, that is the trailer. Is going to premiere.
Oh, that's the trailer. Okay, and then the documentary is going to be at the thing. Oh, okay.
Correct.
All right.
Yep.
I'm sorry.
We're premiering the trailer. The Hairy Man of Dairyland is Wisconsin's Bigfoot.
Okay,
is the
all right.
documentary, and the trailer comes out this Saturday, February 1st, I think it is.
Oh, very good. Sorry about that. Sorry.
No, that's fine. Yeah. The trailer premieres this weekend, and then the actual documentary premieres on May 10th. And that'll be on our Patreon or at the convention, or if you get a virtual ticket, you can watch it that way as well. So,
Yeah. And what I like about what you're doing is my friend Adam Sankin from Conspiranormal, he does this or did this for the Strange Realities Conference. It's like,
yeah,
because I got listeners like all over the world and everything. So I always kind of feel bad. I can bring people on. We talk about their conference. It's like someone in Mississippi might not be able to make it out to the event in Maine. So it's like, okay, this is cool because people can see the presentations and check them out through WisconsinCaps.com and find out more information about the event there. And that's awesome. I wish more folks would do that for their events, because there's a lot of great events and I want to go to all of them, quite frankly. And I have people on all the time that I'm like, if money was no object, I'd probably go to a paranormal event every fucking weekend and like just check it out and enjoy it. Because there's so many cool events that happen like all over the country that I have really wanted to check out over the years. But it's very often, it would be cool to be able to just jump in virtually and check out some of the speakers and stuff. So it'll be fun, and it's a good opportunity for folks out there listening.
Absolutely.
So tell me now, this is funny because I had seen this when I booked you for the show a couple weeks ago. I had seen this. I did. So, the cursory sort of like, who's this Barnaby Jones guy? I was like looking through your stuff, and I saw the former professional wrestler somewhere mentioned. And I had even mentioned it to a guest, to Reverend Redbeard. It comes up later. Either it's before or after this show. I don't know what order they're going to be in, but I'm like, yeah, I got a guy coming on soon. He's a former professional wrestler. But then it like went out of my head. And then today when I was sitting down, I was like, oh, yeah, this guy's a former professional wrestler. I'm a lifelong pro wrestling fan, like 30 plus years, probably almost 40 now. It's like I've been watching since 88. So pretty much nearly since I was 9 years old, and I'm an old fuck now. And I've part of me is like, I missed my calling because like, I feel like I could have been something. I could have been a manager at least in the world of professional wrestling. And so I'm always fascinated. We've had a former pro wrestler on the show last year, and Delaney Bowers, who did like an ethnographic study of Kentucky independent pro wrestling. We talked to her about that. Anytime a guest who's into wrestling comes up at the end of the show as sort of like a little bonus thing here. So you're, besides Cougar J, legendary NWA enhancement wrestler Cougar J, who told us about wrestling Ric Flair last year, you're the only other guy I've ever talked to that's been on the show that's from the world of professional wrestling, who's been in the ring and taking the bumps. So tell me, I feel like we could probably do a whole show on this, but we're not gonna. But we're gonna get into it a little bit. Tell me about this, dude. You're a former pro wrestler. How did this all come about?
Yeah, I did pro wrestling for 10 years here in Wisconsin. Nothing major. Like, we actually were on TV. We were on Time Warner Cable's local channel. We had a show on there for a couple of years. We toured the state. It just got too much that the people that I was running it actually at the time, and the people that were wrestling said, we want to wrestle every weekend. I'm like, okay. So we booked all these shows, and then they didn't show up to half of them.
Oh, God.
So eventually I just got sick of doing everything myself, and I said, I'm done. I sold it. And then one of my wrestlers was like, well, I still want to do it. Will you help me? So I helped restart the group with him. And then he ended up backing out. He ended up going to college and left me holding it again. And the same thing happened, and I sold it off again. So I've owned a couple different promotions and stuff here in Wisconsin. And like I said, did it for 10 years. And I did that all the way back to high school. I started doing the wrestling, and we started off just doing it in the backyard. And then my mom actually built a garage for the ring. So it's this huge garage. It has like 12-foot ceilings. Yeah. It has cemented into the ground ring poles, so they're permanently in there.
Oh, wow.
And
dude, your mom's awesome.
Yeah. It has a locker room. It has a balcony for filming. Holy and stuff. Shit. So the whole garage is built literally for wrestling.
Yeah, it's like a little wrestling studio. Yeah,
absolutely.
That's fucking awesome.
And so we did that there for a little while, and then we ended up getting another ring that was portable so that we could actually travel around, and we started touring the state and stuff like that. We used to do like festivals and flea markets and things like that we'd wrestle at in different venues. But like I said, eventually it just got to the point where I was booking all these events and nobody'd show up to wrestle. So we'd have like 5 guys on a card that's supposed to be 2 hours long, and I'm like, I'm done with this because you guys you don't appreciate it, so we're done. But
you'd have to do the first match under a mask and then come back later as a different character.
Literally, yes. Yep. A lot of our guys pulled double duty where they'd have a masked character and a regular character, and it was a lot of work. And then to have it tear down, I bought a bus so that I could go to the people's houses and pick them up to drive them to the show so that they'd actually put up the ring and help set it up and stuff. And they couldn't leave until the ring was done and loaded. So that's the only way they'd show up to the shows.
Wrestling. This is wild. Yeah. Did you have a gimmick? Did you have a character?
I was Bizzo Blaze. For a while I was doing like the Ministry of Darkness kind of storyline in that. Towards the end I was your savior, the Priest of Darkness, the fulfiller of the prophecy, Bizzo Blaze.
Wow. All right. Is any of this shit on YouTube? I was looking for
it. It's all on YouTube. Yeah.
Oh, you got to send me some of this. Yeah. Like, I'm looking for Barnaby Jones and I'm getting all the fucking TV show. And I'm like, no, I want the wrestling Barnaby Jones. Yeah.
Bizzo Blaze. Bizzo Blaze. Nothing to do with drugs, not a stoner reference. It was a fire, like a pyro gimmick, like a fire
Blaze.
Starter. Yeah.
I love it, dude.
Yep. Yeah. So you look that up on YouTube and there will be a plethora of things that you can watch. Yeah.
Are you a fan of like the contemporary scene, if you will, or you?
Yeah. We still watch it. This weekend is as we're recording this. Weekend is Royal Rumble. Yeah. So yeah, pretty excited for that.
It's the beginning of the high holy days of pro wrestling until April, pretty much. Yeah. Well, not to be that guy. I was whining about this with Reverend Redbeard. I grew up on WWE, but it's really hard to digest nowadays. It's just so slick and commercialized, and all the downtime between matches and everything. It's like, oh god,
there's not good wrestling anymore.
Yeah,
like aside from all the outside of the ring stuff, you watch people like Chris Benoit, Kurt Angle, Eddie Guerrero. Those guys were wrestlers. Like you can learn so much by watching those guys in the ring work. And, nowadays there's so much just punch, kick, clothesline, it's so boring. It's the same match, a couple high spots. There's a couple people that are worth watching and stuff now, but it's so watered down because they do it every single night that they can't put on the caliber of stuff that, they used to do. And I don't know. Yeah.
It's also, not to get too nerdy on it, but yeah, it's also like it's such a homogenized system that the WWE is like they get them like from the cradle, from the proverbial cradle to the grave, where it's like they bring them in and they're right into the system and put right in. This is how it's done, and we don't do it that way. We do it this way. We're like back in the day, it was like this guy's from Tennessee and that guy's from Missouri and this guy's from Wisconsin. He's a big star there. They all kind of came together and were like a mix of styles, and they all knew how to work, and they all knew like little tricks and shit that they picked up, guy from down in Memphis knew, this always works down in Memphis. The guy from Florida is like, oh, this is the way we do it down in Florida. You got a lot of different interesting sort of combinations. Now it's just like, it's the WWE way, and that's it. So I like AEW, but that's a whole different kettle of confused fish right now.
Yeah. They got some interesting talent. They just need to use it more.
Exactly.
They have so many wrestlers and they don't have storylines to utilize them all, and it's not as good. I don't know.
Yeah, you're probably what's that?
I can't get into AEW. It's all the same people from WWE now. You have all the same people that are over there, but it just doesn't feel like it has the same flow. Like there's storylines, there's characters, there's development and stuff in WWE, and over there it's just like, today this guy's wrestling. And it seems like almost every match is a title match because they have too many belts.
Yeah, it's a mess.
So there's no build or nothing. It's just Yeah.
I was super into it when it started. I'm still really into it. I still watch every week, but it's become like, a little, now it's kind of become a little bit out of habit where it's just like, all right, I'm going to keep watching, but And then this weekend is like kind of my annual sampling of WWE, where I'm like, all right, let's see where they're at. And I was joking with a friend of mine because I don't watch really anymore. I'm like really looking forward to the women's Royal Rumble because that's when there'll be like random people. I'm like, who is this girl with green hair and a synthetic? Is that a synthetic tail? Like, why does she have a fucking tail? And then, Michael Cole will be like, it's Gremlina. Gremlina is in the Royal Rumble at number 14. I'll be like, who the fuck is Gremlina? I don't know any of these characters anymore. This is crazy, but it's fun to watch because you're like completely out of the loop. So it's like, that is the weirdest, a Gremlin lady character. I love it. Yeah. Oh, man. Anyway, we could talk about wrestling for a long, long time, but you got to get to work and I got to get to bed. So it's been a lot of fun chatting with you, Barnaby. We definitely got to do it again. And folks should follow up on your stuff at wisconsincaps.com. Really enjoyed the conversation, brother. Thanks for coming on the program.
Absolutely. Thank you much for having me.